we are failing women at every corner here. It's not even a choice. It tends to be just anatomical.
We're not even taught that we're able to have orgasms.
So we're changing that right here, right now.
Such a revolutionary act, but also dreamgasms.
Dreamgasms!
You're just like, okay, it's happening to me. This is what everyone was talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't leave my bedroom.
Welcome to the Luminescence podcast. This is a show for women, by women. So we created the show for one simple reason. Our health and our well-being have been drastically underserved. For most of medical history, women's bodies were either studied only in the context of reproduction, or women's bodies were just looked at like little men. And then even when the attention shifted to women's bodies in the 20th century, our health concerns were either labeled anxious or hysterical. The landscape has improved, but medical research and clinical funding for women's health has lagged so far behind men's needs, men's health. And even out here in the wild, we are not having enough meaningful conversations about our own health. Over the course of this season, we're going to dig into 3 of the things that matter most for women's health: sex, hormones, and intimacy. And in this first episode, we're going to get right to it: pleasure and the orgasm gap. But first, I should introduce these 3 incredible women I have here with me today. You're going to be spending time with Dr. Jolene Brighten. So happy to have you here. Your legend precedes you. You're a naturopathic endocrinologist. You're a clinical sexologist. You are one of the leading voices on women's hormone health. You are a best-selling author of multiple books. Is This Normal?, which is such a fantastic resource. I'm giving it to all of my girls. And then, of course, your pill book, Beyond the Pill, which we will be getting into in certainly deeper in this season. And you run this podcast that answers so many questions about women's sexual health. And I just can't wait to get your advice and wisdom and humor. Dr. Marisa Snyder. So Dr. Marisa Snyder is a functional wellness practitioner, a women's hormone health expert, and you're the best-selling author of 8 books. Rosie Acosta is the host of Radically Well, your amazing podcast. You're also an author of the book You Are Radically Loved. She's a holistic wellness coach, meditation, yoga teacher. I think one of the things most pertinent to this podcast is you have brought the struggles that you had growing up to everything you teach now, and also your personal struggles with perimenopause and menopause into all of your teachings. So I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm always happy to share a room with you. All right. So the way this show will flow is that I will give you a little context for the topic at hand. And today, of course, is pleasure and the orgasm gap. And then each of my co-hosts will bring their experience to the discussion. And then we'll answer some questions from you, dear listeners. And finally, we'll wrap up with any lingering questions that we still have, which we'll then use to seed the fertile ground for future episodes. You know, this is the core of it. To me, the female body and the female psyche is basically a never-ending series of questions. And in that spirit, we offer you inquiry as much as we hope to offer some answers. So let's get to it. Why aren't women orgasming as much as men? Jolene, you take this away.
Well, I first want to say it's false that women orgasm less than men. In fact, research shows us that when a woman is self-pleasuring, she can have more orgasms. There's something called the refractory period. This is where being a woman is just so kick-ass because we have a shorter refractory period. So when a man orgasms, it's usually one and done. When a woman orgasms, she can have multiple. So women can have more orgasms when they're self-pleasuring or when they're with a partner that knows what they're doing. They also get there faster. We're on the Luminescence podcast. I think this is a perfect name for what we need to do. We have to turn up the lights. We have to illuminate all of the things that have been hiding in the shadows, have been kept in the dark, and making us feel ashamed. Now, with that said, many of our listeners right now, they're going to want to dip out, they're going to want to shut down, and they're going to want to stop listening, because that is what society has told us we should do when we get uncomfortable and we hear about sex. So I'm going to challenge everybody. I want you to take what you need, leave what you don't, and ask what's true for you, but stay with us here. So I think that's a really important way to frame this conversation, because what we understand about the orgasm gap is there's about a 30-point differential between who gets to come in a heterosexual relationship. Men are orgasming 95% of the time. Women are orgasming 65% of the time. Now, this is where I've had a lot of men approach me and they say, well, it's just so hard to make a woman orgasm. Okay, false. Research shows us some women can hit it in 4 minutes. Okay? Well, it's the myth that they've been told, which contributes to this as well. There's so many myths around sex. So I think it's really easy to be like, men suck and they don't want to pleasure a woman. But no, actually, because if you're in my DMs, many men are very interested in wanting to pleasure women, because they've also got a pressure of like, they've got to be a stallion, right? Every woman wants to ride this pony. Like, there's a lot of pressure on them as well. And so I think often when we enter in these conversations, we hear about this orgasm gap and it's like, women only get to come 65% of the time. And you're like, men are the worst. And it's like, well, actually, there's a lot to unpack in this. So women can orgasm on their own. Women in a same-sex relationship orgasm about 85% of the time. People will be like, whoa, but that's still not 100%. Pleasure isn't about orgasms. Satisfaction in sexual intimacy isn't about orgasms. And sex itself isn't penetration, which is part of the problem, is that we have rigidly defined this for everyone. And it's really what sex is gets to be defined by you as the individual. And we're going to talk about paying with sex in a future episode, but I think this definition of sex is penetration, 1, makes some women feel broken, and 2, makes it so women can't orgasm. You know, in fact, only 18% of women report that they can orgasm with vaginal penetration alone. Now, I would still challenge there's clitoral involvement, because the clitoris isn't just this little nub sitting on the outside. It is this giant like half octopus is what I like to think of it. It looks like it's got 4 arms and it's in the vaginal walls as well. So, but this idea that like everything we do has to arrive at penetration also is keeping us from being able to orgasm. So
Jolene, I love for you to go back and actually map that out a little bit, because I feel like somebody who knows a lot about their body and is, sort of like fairly clitorate. But I remember it wasn't until maybe 5 or 10 years ago that I saw one of those amazing renderings of the clitoris and how massive it is behind the veil of the clitoral hood down into for anybody who, this is a wonderful use of Google. Go out and look at this, because it is incredible to see how big it is, how it maps onto male anatomy, and how much more men and women share anatomically than we think. But anyway, if you don't mind just doing a little mapping for our listeners, it'd be great.
I could give you all the reasons you should be incorporating Timeline into your daily rhythm. Yes, it's the #1 doctor-recommended urolithin A supplement that is clinically shown to support muscle strength and function. In geek speak, this means that their products reverse mitochondrial decline, which is the key hallmark of aging. But what I really want to tell you about are their delicious toes. Okay, these are technically called MitoPure longevity gummies, but my daughter Micah calls them delicious toes because they have this really weird but really awesome texture, and they are amazingly delicious. Even better, they aren't just glorified candy like most gummies. They are actually packed with urolithin A and 0 sugar. Mike and I truly have to restrain ourselves from overindulging on the way to school, because I need to make my bag of energy bombs last into 2026. And I don't want you to let another year go by feeling less than your best. So go to timeline.com/Lumi. That's timeline.com/LUMI to claim a very special offer from me to you.
We got to talk about the clitoral conspiracy, okay?
Let's have it.
This is what
I'm
I call
here
it
for
in
it.
Is This Normal? So the clitoris was actually first discovered. They began dissecting it out. This was in Hippocrates' time. So we're talking about like 460 BCE, like way back in the day. Grey's Anatomy comes along and they're just like, oh, you know what? We don't need to put a clitoris in an anatomy book. The French, they actually named the clitoris a shameful member. I can't speak French, so I can't tell you the word, but that's what they named it.
It's like membre honteux.
Yes, yes. Oh my God. I put that in my book, such a mistake, because then when I had to read the audiobook, I'm like, oh. So men saw this as a threat, and men had taken midwives out of the equation, co-opted medicine, and decided they were the experts of the female body, which was inferior to the male body. So why bother even studying it? So we get this, Dr. O'Connell in the 1990s discovered the clitoris. No. The clitoris was acknowledged, and then we had better mapping, but we always knew about this structure. Now, here we are sitting. At this moment, it is 2025. The majority of medical textbooks do not even have accurate representation of the clitoris. This is why when I know,
today. Yes.
Wild, right?
This is a travesty.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, in my book, Is This Normal? There's three diagrams of the clitoris, okay? And my editors do really need to have 3. I'm like, if medical textbooks have 0, I got to make up the difference here. And what's really important for women to understand, especially in the age of labiaplasty, most surgeons are not actually trained on the clitoris, let alone nerve innervation. This is why I'm like, you only mess with like the women in neuropelviology who are the experts in like the nerves of the pelvis and who actually understand this and fight gynecologists every day on the misinformation they perpetuate. So that's the first thing you need to know is if you don't know about your clitoris, this was on purpose. So just the fact that you're listening to this is such a revolutionary thing. It's such a revolutionary act. If you can share this, you're my favorite kind of troublemaker because you're disseminating the information that literally men across the ages have tried to withhold from us. So the clitoris, the little nub that you see on the outside, that's sitting above the urethra, actually dives deeper, and it's got 4 legs that actually span the vaginal canal. Now, what do you need to know about the clitoris other than just we can also talk about how most women like the clitoris stimulated if men are listening based on the research, not just what I say is true. But what you need to understand is embryologically speaking, we all started out down the female track and that was going to be awesome. Like you were going to have the best anatomy. And then you had a testosterone wash. The SRY gene has to be present. That kicks on. And now you differentiated from the beautiful female anatomy and you went penis, scrotum. And what is that? That is the same tissue as the clitoris. So this, you'll very rarely hear me say, take a male study and apply it to women and it works out. But when we look at the penis, which we study greatly and not the clitoris, we can actually apply these things because they are the same tissues and they respond in the same way. They get engorged. You have an erection, your clitoris becomes erect. Like while they look different, they behave the same. So why does this matter? Because we understand things like in men's research that cardiovascular disease, insulin resistance, stress, all of these factors we know can lead to erectile dysfunction, can lead to clitoral dysfunction. I kind of hate dysfunction. I want everyone to know that.
Well,
it's just
and
what the studies
suboptimal
say.
orgasms.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the most important things that women can take away from the clitoris is that understanding that we've all been taught, right? Cosmo's like how to please a man on every single freaking cover for like decades on end. You know, we have to understand we don't have a great deal of information, but this is the one of the areas in medicine where we can actually start to apply what we know about the penis and its function. But here's the wild, crazy, most amazing thing of being a woman. I'm going to say this about like literally everything because you're so badass. Is that a penis also has to ejaculate, it has to urinate, and it hangs out on the outside of the body. So it cannot have as many nerve endings as we do. It cannot be as sensitive as the clitoris is because could you imagine walking around with your clitoris highly exposed, rubbing against your jeans all day? Like well, we would have a great time, but we would get nothing done, right? And so the
Just coming all day.
Yeah, just coming all day. We would be so euphoric.
Maybe 100%.
I'd be like, I'm not coming into work today.
Oxytocin through the roof.
All day, every day. So, I mean, that's also why it's like, no, actually, like women have more orgasms. It's very easy to make a woman orgasm. You just got to know what you're doing. You got to do what Dr. Ian Kerner coined as clitorit, where he actually wrote a book and he encouraged men to start with oral sex, to start with like the book is She Comes First. If you start there and you're not just trying to get at penetration, which statistically speaking can be harder for women to orgasm unless there are other things happening, and here's the thing about it, the 18% orgasming, it tends to be just anatomical. It's the way you were born. So it's not even a choice whether you have an orgasm vaginally or not. And I think that's important for women to hear as well, because majority of women need clitoral stimulation, whether they're having penetration or not, to have an orgasm. Now, that being said, I do want to acknowledge for people who have like spinal cord injuries, you know, they're not feeling anything below the waist. And this, I think everybody needs to know, and it sets like everything that Dr. Marisa and Rosie are going to talk about is going to be so important, is that your nervous system will reroute nerves for pleasure. If you can no longer experience pleasure by the clitoris or the penis, your spinal cord will prioritize that. It tells you how important pleasure is to the human experience and to our well-being, that your nervous system will say, we're going to get at it another way. And then
neuroplasticity,
yeah,
all the
it's
way.
Brilliant,
Amazing.
right? And then I do want to acknowledge some women can think off, right? They can just think about sexual things and have an orgasm. Some people, you know, they can have, there's so many ways to have orgasms.
People have orgasms at the gym inadvertently just by adducting,
I just
like
have
squeezing their inner thighs. I mean, that hasn't happened to
like,
me, but I'm just saying.
I want to tell you, I had a coregasm before. If people don't know what that is, it's basically contracting your cores and your core muscles. And because of how it all innervates and the terminal ends of some of these muscles are in the pelvis, that can stimulate the clitoris. Some of you may have had pee-gasms. That's when you hold your pee at night. You're not doing it on purpose. You're sleeping and you wake up and you're having an orgasm.
But
and
also dreamgasms, right?
Yeah, well, dreamgasms are like a fun time, right?
Yeah. It teaches you, that does. I mean, when you think about the fact that women also have wet dreams, it is in your head.
Mm-hmm. Again, we got the best anatomy. You can't tell me otherwise. I mean, I'm biased, but you know, the thing about the coregasm, I went through endometriosis excision surgery, and a lot of women are afraid of that because if you don't have the right people, they can mess with your sexual function. My shout out to Dr. Ana Sierra, who is the top trained neuropelviologist in the world, the only female trained at the level she is to actually do excision of pelvic nerves. Anyhow, I messaged her on Instagram. She's a friend of mine. I was crying. I was like, if I can never have an orgasm again, I don't know what I'll do. You have to be at this surgery. She shows up. Girl shows up at like 5 a.m. for me, holds my hand all the way down. I was like, oh my God, I love you so much. I go through pelvic floor physical therapy. Okay, so I've had it before because I've had children, but following this and working on my pelvic floor and the musculature there, now I have to be careful when I work out because it happens so frequently that I have a coregasm. I'm not mad about it, but it is at times like a little off-putting, right? Because you're working out with other people and then you're just like, oh, hey, oh, something, okay, it's happening to me. I'm telling this story because I want to normalize conversations about things that are normal about the human body, that in the moment, the first time it happened, I was like, ooh, what is happening here? And like, I know what's happening here. But like, if I was in a gym setting, I'm like, that would have been probably a little bit awkward, but it is completely normal. And I think we do need to bring up something that's really important because there's a practice that women have been doing that has put men at a disservice from learning what they need to learn and puts us at a disservice, which is altruistic deceit. We are faking orgasms. Estimates say that anywhere from 60 to 75% of women have faked orgasm at one time or another. Men immediately say, women are liars. And what I want men to know and hear is what the research tells us is it's altruistic deceit. Women understand your ego, and not like you're egotistical, but how you feel about yourself is so important that they will fake an orgasm to make you feel better about yourself. Then there's a subset of women who will fake an orgasm because they need it to be over, and that's often due to pain, which is why our upcoming episode is one that everybody needs to tune into because statistically speaking, at some point, every single woman will have pain with sex.
Or boredom.
Well, what's really interesting.
Roll over and grab a vibrator, guys.
Well, it's interesting, like being able to get to this place of education. You know, we're not even taught the female anatomy. We're not even taught that we're able to have orgasms. Like I wasn't taught about sex being important for me. You're always taught sex is important for your partner, right? Especially, you know, growing up for me, it was growing up in a very devout Catholic household. Sex did not come up at all. Like I didn't even learn about having an orgasm until I was in my 20s, like 20s.
Yeah.
And I was having sex prior to that.
I wish I could tell you that I'm having so much hot and sweaty sex that I need extra hydration. But the truth is that the thing I'm really passionate about is playing tennis. Hydration still applies. And my number one go-to for hydration support is Element, which is loaded with electrolytes, particularly sodium and potassium. And you know, salt's been misunderstood. When energy or focus drops, more salt can be a game changer, literally. And Element is also zero sugar and completely clean. No artificial colors or other dodgy ingredients. It's perfectly suited for athletes and aspiring athletes like me. I particularly love the raspberry salt. And yeah, salty is a word that it has been applied to me upon occasion, so it is only fitting that I should be gifting all of you a little bit of Element. So if you go to drinkelement.com/TLP, you will get a free Element sample pack with any purchase when you order through my special salty offer. Here's to a very salty new year, my friends. More tennis? Why not? More sex, or whatever gets you sweaty. So off you go. That's drinklmnt/TLP.
Yeah, you know, they've done studies on different sex ed programs, and in sex ed programs that prioritize teaching pleasure as part of the curriculum, unwanted pregnancy and STDs go way down.
Wow. That makes sense.
Which totally makes sense.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
and also for parents who are listening, like the main goal of sex ed in the US is to scare the bejesus out of you so that you don't want to have it, so you don't have it younger. So what you're referencing is the studies out of Germany and the Netherlands. And what we have found is that sex, the first time people have sex is actually later. They tend to be more closer to adult, if not adults, and they share the experience with their parents, and they don't report shame, remorse, or that there was any kind of trauma around it. They say it's pleasurable, and yet in the US, everything is completely opposite. So we have to re-examine this.
Yeah, and I think it's also a matter of, you know, feeling empowered and growing up feeling a sense of security, you know, especially if there is any type of sexual abuse or sexual trauma. You don't really, that's not really an area of focus for women. I'm sure for men as well, that you focus on. It's like this area of my body did not give me pleasure, right? So now how then do I grow up exploring this center that is designed very perfectly, as Dr. Jolene's saying.
The only organ in the human body designed solely for pleasure. I mean, and then so here we are, full of shame and cultural repression around this pleasure-seeking part of the body. So, Rosie, tell us a little bit about all of your work.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me, a lot of what I have done in the last 20 years has been having conversations like this to try and dispel the myths and the shame around talking about sex. I remember getting my period when I was 11, and you know, I would like throw away my underwear in the trash because I didn't know what to do with it. And I think my mom found them or something. And then the next day she put like maxi pads on my bed. And that was the talk. That was the conversation. There was no, here's how you use it. It's going to last this amount of days, you know, and it's going to feel like this. There was no conversation. So by the time I started having sex and I was having underage sex, obviously, it was something that brought a lot of shame and anxiety around this specific topic. So once I got older and I did my own research, I was dumbfounded at how much information was out there that we weren't taught in sex ed, right? We're not taught, oh, for women, you get to have pleasure too. It's not just this thing entering you, you're waiting for it to be done. You can actually enjoy this. It's really important to be able to talk to your daughters, talk to your sons, talk to your kids about sex and what it is. There's just so much stigma around it still, so I try to bring it in from a mindful place where, you're having conversations about prevention of STDs, prevention of, unwanted pregnancies. And it is a very slippery slope when you start to talk about, birth control with people that might find it going against their religion or against their cultural beliefs. And I agree with you 100%. How do you start to implement that to, and look, and not all of it is going to be accepted, right? As a communal thing or within a community, especially if there is a lot of rigidity within the community. You can't just be like, let's go stare at each other's yonis for an hour and just, explore. There is no framework for that, so you do it very mindfully, very carefully, very respectfully to educate people that, there are ways to practice a deeper form of intimacy. So it's really about, to me, I frame it in the work of self-love and self-compassion. It's like, okay, this is what your body's capable of doing.
Designed
to do this really incredible thing.
I would also say, the work you do as a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher and a breathwork teacher, those kind of modalities, anything that we do that is really somatic helps us to feel, and expect is not quite the right word, but to inhabit pleasure in our bodies and to feel your breath, to feel your body in shapes, to be an embodied being is such a huge part of satisfying sexuality.
Yeah.
And so, for somebody who feels so divorced from their sexuality, who doesn't really, isn't going to start with a mirror or with masturbation, maybe they need to start by just like having a relationship with their body, not going to the gym and pounding it out on a Stairmaster, but actually like feeling into themselves.
Yeah. Well, obviously somatic practices like yoga, dance, meditation, breath work, being able to do that type of movement that it's really interesting in Hispanic cultures because we dance, right? Like that is and really sexy. And you can go and do like the sexiest of sexy dances, but then it's like, don't talk about sex.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, don't talk about sex. So to me, can we reverse engineer that and say, okay, so your body's capable of feeling pleasure and going into these somatic places of release and feeling satisfaction. So exactly like you're saying.
And being sexy yourself and sexy with another person and that interplay. Yeah.
We have these internal narratives that we have repeated over and over. And just like we trained ourselves into them, we can train ourselves out of them. So that's the work. That's the reframe.
I agree. I think that there's a huge, I know we're talking about the orgasm gap and the pleasure gap, but it's a knowledge gap. I think we can all go back to being a lot of Latinas here in the room as well.
We're all Latina
so
gang.
outnumbered.
My menstrual cycle was a curse. The thing between a man's leg was the devil. Like this was the language that I grew up with. And that women were designed to suffer. That was the narrative. And so there was the cultural narrative that was happening behind the scenes. I think about the biopsychosocial part. That was the social part. But then I think about the education, the knowledge gap for both men and women when we were going through high school, or I think it was high school, all of us, and getting the education. And it was mostly male physiology. I remember there's a very small piece about female physiology and really more so to but then it was, because we're baby making machines. That's all we're
Bread
here to do.
Do you say bread boxes?
Bread boxes.
So good.
Just pushing out loaves of bread.
Bacon all day.
Bacon bread. Yes, absolutely. But that knowledge gap is for both men and women, or girls and boys. And I remember it just being, it was abstinence, keeping us off the pole. Let's be honest, keeping us off the pole. And it was also STDs. That was the piece. And I'll never forget, going through high school into college, and I went to a private women's college. And so I was surrounded. Yeah,
you just like kept dishing it back to yourself.
I didn't have an orgasm until I was in college. I was so, again, you grow up with this culture, you grow up with this lack of education, and you're hearing whispers. You're hearing,
did you think you were missing something?
Yeah, I knew I was missing something. And I thought I was broken. I thought I was broken for so long. I thought I don't orgasm. That's the deal. Because it was all penetrative sex is what it was. And there was no, I don't think any of my partner knew about where the clitoris was or how to stimulate the clitoris. We're rolling this back to 2002 or 2004. And so I remember being in college and the vagina monologues had come to the Bay Area. And I was so excited. I remember sitting in the theater to watch it. I left. Because I was ashamed of what I was learning in the vagina monologues. Like I was like, this was a lot. And
what was it about it? Was it like the anatomy talk? Well, I'm just curious. Yeah, I'm fascinated by your story.
No, I know. It was definitely, no, I don't think it was the anatomy because I was in biology at the time. I was pre-med in college. So I was into the anatomy. And again, we were still stunted in terms of the anatomy for women. But it was the honest and open conversation about sexuality. Mm-hmm. And so that, I think that, because you just don't talk about that. You just do the deed and you get it over with and you move on.
Because it's dirty.
Yeah, it was super dirty. And so I was like, I'm supposed to do this, and do this thing and then like go back and do the dishes. And so I went back. It was at my school for like a couple of weeks. I went back and I fully watched it. And then one of my best friends became one of the producers for the show. And I ended up being in the vagina monologues a couple of years later. Yeah,
that's an amazing.
So I remember sitting, big circle, the 50 women, because it was all women in the show, producing the show. It was an all women show, all women school. Like I always say I serve everybody by serving women. And I remember sitting at the end of one of our rehearsals, and there was a question that went around the room to all of these 50. And mind you, a lot of these women were like in perimenopause and menopause. So not like I would say half 20-year-olds, 30, 40, 50-year-olds. And we go around the room and the question is, would you choose orgasms or cheese? You had to choose one or the other.
Have you been to France?
Let's just say 70 to 80% of the room chose cheese.
No. Oh my God.
Do you think it was an honest answer?
I know these were women that were married with children. They were like cheese. So many of them, I would say, I was amazed because it opened up and it deepened the conversation about, are we even having orgasms in this room? So majority of the women were not having orgasms, although they had children. That they did not enjoy sex, that it felt very performative. They felt like they were broken. And I remember I was 22 years old. And I remember listening to these women who were in their 30s and their 40s, maybe even their 50s. And I thought, oh my gosh, like we are failing women at every corner here. Like these women have just retired out of sex at this point because they don't enjoy it. It's not pleasurable. And so I was like on a mission. I'm like, I have got to figure out this gap for myself because I had not had an orgasm. I'm 22 now and I'm thinking I've got to figure this out. And so I go get the magic wand.
Yeah. That is OG.
I'm going to plug this sucker into the wall. Like I want the full G's experience. And oh my goodness, I was like, this is what everyone was talking about. Yeah. Yes. I remember I didn't leave my bedroom. We're talking about that refractory period, girl. I was pushing up against the wall of that refractory period. I was having orgasms 4 to 5 times a day for like months.
And you're like, my skin never looked better.
And I'll tell you, I had no desire to do this with my partner. Oh. I was like, this is just my show. This is for me only.
So you had a partner at the time. Did you tell him, her?
I was. And I was like, listen, I think it was towards the tail end. And I was like, this is mine. This is my
interesting.
Yeah. But and at what point, if you don't mind me getting into detail here, but at what point did you decide with that partner or another, like
okay, actually now I want to like integrate these things, and I can have both. I can have intimacy.
Such a great question. It was after that partner. I think because the intimacy and the intercourse was so bad. It was so painful for so long that I felt like I was never going to be able to repair that.
The dynamic was
the dynamic was in disarray at that point. Especially after the vagina monologues experience between the cheese and the orgasms. And I was on the cheese train too. I was like, cheese.
She's like, give me the cheese.
Please.
Give me the queso.
I have finally found something to replace my old school lube. A totally clean product that's also a legit pleasure enhancer. If you don't know about Foria's Awaken Arousal Oil and their amazing intimacy melts, you are missing out, my friends. So I'm here looking at the list of ingredients in the bottle of lube that's been sitting around in my little bag of tricks for a bunch of years, and they include dimethicone, phenoxyethanol, methylparaben, and I'm not going to pronounce the rest of it. Now, I'm clearly not a chemist, but let me just say that I don't think we should put anything between our legs that we would not put in our mouth. Yes, you know what I mean. So, the ingredients of Foria's Awaken Arousal Oil: organic MCT coconut oil, broad spectrum hemp extract, botanical infusions of things like kava, cinnamon, ginger, and vanilla. Every single ingredient organic and never tested on animals. Well, tested on this animal. And this female hominid is here to say that midlife is the time for better sex and wetter sex, and there is nothing wrong with asking for some enhancements. We should all be asking for more from life, so go ahead and treat yourself to a deeper sensual experience with a bottle of Foria. Foria is offering a special deal for our listeners. You can get 20% off your first order by using code Luminescence at checkout on ForiaWellness.com. That's FORIA Wellness.com. Code Luminescence. Now, I recommend trying Awaken or their pleasure set with all 3 of their bestsellers. You'll thank me later. Scout's honor. I have got to tell this random anecdote that because we're talking about cheese. So there was a study done on mice or rats or mice on distraction. And like it's really like women's minds during sex versus men's minds. And when the rats were copulating and they put little dribbles of cheese out in front of the male, he did not smell the cheese. He was not distracted, but the female mice were distracted by the cheese. So there's a through line there.
I have a case study of 50 women.
I mean, cheese can in the brain have like a bit of a euphoric sense. You'll hear people extrapolate this to be like on social media where they're like, cheese is addicting as opioids because it can have a bit of that effect.
I don't think it was really the cheese. I think it was anything that was desirable. I mean, I think that women are we're just easily
anything
distractible.
That was pleasurable?
Yes.
Anything that was pleasurable because eating is pleasurable.
Right. You know, I want to kind of wrap up with this historical piece that I actually didn't know about until I started preparing for this episode that just kind of blew my mind and put so many things in context. And it was really what Freud did to, and I know you've talked about this, Jolene, but what Freud
I'm a Freud hater.
did to women in pleasure. And he had a theory that vaginal orgasms were the mature orgasm. Mm-hmm. And that a clitoral orgasm was an immature orgasm. It was related to like the I don't know if he was anatomically taking it back to like the clitoris was related to the penis, but he thought it was more like if a woman had an orgasm from clitoral stimulation, she was young, she was in, it was prepubescent, it was pubescent, it was not a woman's orgasm. And that dogma has carried on today. I mean, I do think that there is still this narrative that if you're having a vaginal orgasm, you are having a better orgasm or somehow a more complete orgasm. And we just need to lay that to rest. It is not anatomically accurate. It is not experientially accurate. And if women were to fully embrace, and men, if they're partnered with a man, are to fully embrace the fact that our clit is the same as their penis, and that you wouldn't expect a man to come to orgasm regularly just by diddling around on their belly button, then we would narrow that 30-point gap significantly if we were all just to become clitorate.
Hey, listen,
it's kind of as simple as that.
Freud's partners faked it. I'm going on the record and saying it. And secondly, like, Freud, tell me you don't know how to pleasure a woman without telling me.
Exactly. Like, he had no idea. That was the deal. And I was thinking, like, the fact that default, we would have all had clitorises if, the Y chromosome didn't kick in. Like, this is the default.
As you were saying, Schuyler, they studied the male body and said, just apply it to the inferior baby-making model, which is women. And yet we were the pattern. We were the model. Like, we are the default mode of existence. And the deviation is the male, male model.
And here we have this, we have got the Ferrari of pleasure organs. All right, well, we could obviously talk about this forever amongst ourselves, but I want to bring in a few questions we got from the audience.
For sure.
Let me see. All right. Okay, Jolene, I want you to take this first one. This is a good one for you. Ellen asks, what are some practical tips for orgasming? With your, self or with a partner? This could go on for a whole other episode, but just give us top line.
Yeah, this is a great question. The research tells us there's 3 key things that most women like. If you like something different, you're totally normal. But here they are. It is consistent medium pressure. Okay, so medium pressure, circular motion, and staying consistent. No on again, off again, no up and down, no Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off, like just consistent medium circular pressure. And that's where you start. And if you're like, I'm still having a hard time, I want you, whether you are a man or a woman, you're going to think about your vibrator as your Batman utility belt. And if Batman was fighting crime or trying to get the job done, would he say, oh no, not this, because I think that this thing is inferior or says something negative about me. No. He'd pull out whatever he had in his tool belt, and in your tool belt should be a toy of your choosing, of your liking, that can help you explore and get there.
Yes. Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
Here's for your favorite
Yay,
sex toy.
vibrators.
Get it.
Here's to Bat Women. Okay, this next question is, I'm going to give this one to you, Rosie.
Okay.
How do I best communicate with my partner about intimacy? Harder than it seems.
Yeah, because it could mean so many things. Via text. No, I'm just kidding. Send them a text like I do. I'm like, I'm having big feelings. Sometimes in the moment when we're feeling really disconnected, we might not have the right words. So I'm a big fan of communicating in a way that's
a little more thoughtful.
Yeah, a little bit more thoughtful.
Yeah, can I add something? I think a really good rule of thumb is telling your partner what you like in bed. Totally legal. What you don't like, take it out of the bedroom.
Oh, 100%. I think that's a pro tip. Obviously, you've been in a partnership for a very long time. And so have I. And I think that's probably the best pro tip.
Okay, this is one that I know a lot of women will share. Marisa, you can definitely take this one. So after years of sex and getting herself off successfully, in menopause, things be changing down there. Like some pro tips there.
I would say number 1, lube. But lube should be our entire lifetime. So yay to lube from our early years into our late years, but yes to lube and yes to hormones. Thinking about bringing on estradiol, thinking about bringing on testosterone. I recommend, especially if a woman's in menopause. I mean, we don't necessarily need a test at that point. And women ask me all the time, should I be testing my hormones? I'm like, no, they're pretty low down there. So we can just bring hormones on. And then I would also say,
are you a fan of estrogen cream, even if you're not taking
we're going to be going deep into this conversation into another episode, but all vaginas need estrogen. All vaginas need vaginal estrogen, and maybe a little DHEA as well, and then even systemic hormones like testosterone and estrogen.
We will go there.
Yeah.
We will go there. You best be assured. Cool. All right. Well, we're going to end each show, as I mentioned, just with like any kind of nagging things that we feel like maybe we didn't get to, or stuff this might have brought up for each of us, if there's anything.
I need to know what cheese you had in mind when you chose cheese over an orgasm. I need to know.
We'd have to ask Eve Ensler or whoever.
We've got a place for comments. Y'all, I need to know.
I think for me, it's the same question that continues to come up. Why are we not teaching this in school?
How do we get this into school? Oh God,
yes.
That's a big question.
That's the big thing.
Okay, I have a question. I wish we got into it this episode, but we'll have to do another one. Don't answer even if you have an answer.
Why are you looking at me?
Because I think you have an answer. Okay, I would like to know, and I know other women who have spoken to this, and it's come up in their relationships with men, not women who are partnered with other women. But since we've talked about clitoral stimulation a lot, if you are using a vibrator regularly on your clitoris, is there any desensitization for just digital or pressure stimulation? Okay, for another episode. Marisa, anything?
I was going to say, same as Rosie, as I'd love to know more about how are we shifting the education, not only in medical school, but also in high school, so that we are educating more on pleasure and we are really focusing on female physiology. That's what I would love to know, if that is moving forward or not, and how do we move it forward?
I'm afraid we're not in a great administration for that, but here, let's figure out how we can make it happen. All right, guys. What fun to talk. I can't wait for the next topic of conversation. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining this episode of the Luminescence podcast. Our show is powered by Commune, which is an all-in-one course platform for living a happy, healthy, and for Luminescence fans, horny life. Many of the almost 200 courses on Commune address women's holistic wellness specifically, including more wisdom from Dr. Jolene Brighten, yoga and breathwork classes from yours truly, and dozens of other classes with leading female health experts and teachers. So just go to onecommune.com to learn more. That is ONE commune.com. Also, wherever you're watching or listening to the show, be sure to subscribe and please, please, please leave a comment. You will be helping us to shape the future of this show. All right, that's all for now. I'll see you next week.
I could give you all the reasons you should be incorporating Timeline into your daily rhythm. Yes, it's the #1 doctor-recommended urolithin A supplement that is clinically shown to support muscle strength and function. In geek speak, this means that their products reverse mitochondrial decline, which is the key hallmark of aging. But what I really want to tell you about are their delicious toes. Okay, these are technically called Mitopure longevity gummies, but my daughter Micah calls them delicious toes because they have this really weird but really awesome texture, and they are amazingly delicious. Even better, they aren't just glorified candy like most gummies. They are actually packed with urolithin A and zero sugar. Mike and I truly have to restrain ourselves from overindulging on the way to school, because I need to make my bag of energy bombs last into 2026. And I don't want you to let another year go by feeling less than your best. So go to timeline.com/Lumi. That's timeline.com/LUMI to claim a very special offer from me to you.